Okay, we had a bit of a development yesterday, and this one in particular caught my interest because, based on the shirt here, could be showing maybe a surprise Nintendo could have set up as soon as, say, April 2nd when they do the big Switch 2 blowout for a certain addition to NSO. And it becomes more and more real when you see things like documentation and filing start to come together that could be pointing towards an NSO edition along with a new piece of hardware. Yeah, something to go along with that. And I wonder what they would release, say, if maybe GameCube found its way to NSO. Well, let's take a look at that here today with the latest filing and how everyone's kind of coming to the conclusion that we could be seeing GameCube getting added in pretty soon. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. Let me tell you about Encore for a minute, which is the place to learn about and shop for retro video games. Real collectors tell you about the games they're selling, and many actually show you gameplay footage in their video listings. Encore is sort of like TikTok combined with an online auction. It's a great alternative to live stream shopping since you can look for cool games on your schedule whenever you want. The auctions on Encore can get crazy on some of the rarer items, with last-minute bids flying in and lots of trash talking in the chat. You might also make some new friends or enemies. It's super easy since all you have to do is swipe to bid, and by saving auctions, you can be notified when there are 5 minutes left, so you can jump in and try to get that last-second deal. The thrill of the auction, the friendly banter between passionate collectors, and the deals, that's what Encore is all about. Encore takes trust and safety seriously. All sellers are ID verified. The Encore guarantee protects you when your item comes not as described. Not only are sellers trustworthy, but they have fantastic customer service. Don't be surprised if you win an auction and the seller personally messages you to say thank you and let you know you're in good hands. There are tons of giveaways in the app that are completely free to enter. Encore pays for giveaway shipping, so if you win, you don't pay anything. Once you've entered a giveaway, you can get 5 extra entries per friend you bring to join the giveaway. Just share the link in the app with your friends, and when they enter, your odds of winning go up quickly. Use my link to download Encore on the iOS and Android app stores to start winning deals on video games and consoles. I'll have that link down below in the description. Thanks to Encore for sponsoring today's video. Let's head over here. This is posted up on Nintendo Everything, saying the new FCC filing hints at Nintendo Switch 2 GameCube controller. As we've seen with the different consoles that were added to NSO, they had a controller. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64, even the Genesis got their own controller you could buy. Wireless, of course, but they were high quality. First party wise came from Nintendo. Even the Genesis one is actually pretty good. But seeing something like the Nintendo 64 controller get a very faithful recreation for NSO, I mean, that was actually a lot of fun to be able to get that, and it still has that feeling of the Nintendo 64 in playing those games with a very unique controller. Well, you can see the GameCube controller also very unique in its layout and its structure, so it's definitely one that you would want to have, I think, to play a lot of these GameCube games. But there are also still some questions around how they would go about this exactly, which we'll get to here in a moment. But for people who have never used a GameCube controller, it looks weird. However, it's actually a pretty comfortable controller, and it lines up very nicely with all these different GameCube games. First party, it lines up incredibly well, obviously. Even third-party games that were well done kind of understood the layout and tried to set up the games as best as they could for it. It's not like the N64 controller. That was like off the wall. Nintendo is like out in left field somewhere with this thing. But it also wasn't like the more traditional style. Still, though, awesome controller. Now, when we look at this, this is the image that has everyone going, okay, this has to be GameCube, or at least that's speculation. So it is BEE021. BE, or just B, is the designation for the Switch 2, like HAC is the designation for Switch 1. So any accessories or the system itself, HAC-00101 or something. Like, they have a bunch of numbers to go alongside of that to then really specify what accessory or piece of hardware it is in that family. Okay, so B021, okay, so a controller for the Switch 2. And it appears to be wireless because it's being tested for a Bluetooth connection. We already know the Joy-Con and like what the designation is for that, so it's not like an extra Joy-Con controller or anything. This seems to be its own thing, and the part that has people pointing towards a GameCube controller specifically is this image right here, the shape. So this clearly is not the shape of a GameCube controller. If you remember when we got word of the Nintendo 64 controller through an FCC filing, it was also just a basic shape. And that's sort of the way that they can get around the idea of being too specific in a filing before a big announcement, say like GameCube or Nintendo 64. They give them a basic shape, and then in this case, they're showing where the label goes. So the label would go on the back of the controller, something on the front, like for any kind of information, FCC wireless related designation with that B021 label. No, that would be on the back of the controller. Okay, so now picture this being flipped over. The label is on that bottom left, which if you look at a GameCube controller now, is where that label is. So if they are trying to be as faithful as possible to the original, all things considered, if they can keep it the same like structure and stuff, that's where it would go. Now the Wavebird controller that we're kind of now likening this to, because that was the big wireless controller back then that was really, really well done. The battery life on it is crazy. 2 AA's, I think I changed them out once in that entire generation. I played a lot of GameCube, but they weren't able to put the designation on the back for that because the back was basically just the 2 AA's. Like they had a door and stuff there, and that was, of course, something could be lost. So you have to put it on a part of the controller that's just always attached. In that case, they put it on the bottom. So it's not going to be the same here, and they're not going to necessarily remake the Wavebird 1-to-1. I think it's just going to be a GameCube controller that's just wireless. It's same kind of shell and structure and stuff, but without the cable. Technology, of course, has jumped forward several generations now to where you don't need AA's. You can have rumble that's not as intrusive as what's on the GameCube controller currently, where they have the big spinning weight and metal piece in the back, and that's one of the reasons you had that big like bulge on the back of the controller. But that you'd probably have the built-in rechargeable battery there, so they'd still keep the same shape, just trying to work within the confines of the style of that controller. But this does, I think, line up with the idea of NSO getting GameCube along with the controller and it working into the Switch 2, which appears to be just quite a bit more powerful than the current Switch. Would I have liked to have seen GameCube already come out on the Switch 1 as it is now? Yes, but I do think there would be quite a few limitations right now with what the Switch could technically put out, and I would like to see them maybe take more advantage of the newer hardware to do some really cool stuff with GameCube emulation. So, like right now, if you have even a pretty standard or basic setup, like here's a $100 PC emulation box that I'm putting together right now, and like I have some footage of a couple of GameCube games. Just with some basic up-resing, you can make these games look really, really good. And I think it just shows how well these games have held up, like smoothing them out, putting them at 1080p and stuff. You can still keep the frame rate relatively good for a $100 system, and it looks great still on a monitor or a big screen. So I kind of feel like Nintendo can do something similar with the Switch 2. And the library of games, that's where, to me, it can be kind of a bit of a toss-up. There's still licensing stuff that's going to be an issue, but they have pulled off some genuine surprises already with the current Switch. Like, think of GoldenEye. I don't think anyone expected like all the parties to come together and make that happen, but it seems that if the game can't technically be sold outside of a service, there's more leeway. That game you can't buy. You have to be subscribed to the service, which tells me behind the scenes there's probably a timer that's constantly ticking down till eventually it disappears and is pulled off the services. But it feels like if it's not sold, it's locked behind a subscription, you might have more wiggle room because that company, we'll say Sega, maybe they go, you know what, you can have Skies of Arcadia, you can have Crazy Taxi, right? You can have Fanstar. But we don't want them to be sold. We can sell them later still in a collection. It would have value of some kind then still. So that, to me, I look at that and go, okay, maybe that's a way for them to get the negotiations done a bit easier. Because there are a lot of games around this time where it was very creative. It's not now where budgets are through the roof, takes forever to make a game. So it seems like risk tolerance is an issue. Whereas back then, you're just having some crazy stuff be made all over the place. And I think this would be a really cool time to see games from 20 plus years ago resurface for a new audience and see what they think. Like Second Sight is one that it's a game I still think about as like, man, what an interesting title that's kind of been lost to time from that generation, right? Like Red Faction 2. I don't think you'd get it done with Activision, but like True Crime, Streets of LA, that would be cool to see. Time Splitters Future Perfect is on the PlayStation Plus Premium, so I'm sure that could probably get thrown in there since it seems like, I guess, Embracer shopping that around quite a bit currently. Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. I mean, you can go down the list of all the first-party stuff from Nintendo, and they have that mature-rated app now, so they could do Geist. Put that in there. Maybe they can figure it out with Konami where they can get Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. That'd be fun, just to see the reaction with some of those cutscenes, and even having Metal Gear Solid 2 mechanics go into Metal Gear Solid 1. While it's both loved and hated for that, it would just be a fun title to see added in and just have more and more people kind of experience some of these games from that generation. Now, there does seem to be a bit of a hang-up here. People are kind of torn on if this could really be a thing because, well, Nintendo, maybe they just want to remaster all of these games. And I do like the optimism there that Nintendo cares to remaster a lot of these. I just don't think they do. I think you get those exceptions like Thousand Year Door. That one, sure, makes sense. But are they really going to go back and look at all these games and be like, we got to remaster all these things for the Switch 2 from the GameCube era? I don't think so. And games that are in that in-between section for them where they're like, maybe, hey, just put it in through an emulator and put it in NSO and add value, because here's the other thing. The price of this is going up. Once they add GameCube in, the price is probably going from 50 to 60 or even 70, because they could also maybe add DS. Think about the mouse functionality that they've been teasing and we all believe is going to be a mechanic for the Switch 2. That would make it so that touchscreen is a bit easier, I'll say. It's still not as good as having two screens in front of you and be able to just tap the bottom screen with a stylus, but it's better than having to use an analog stick. That's something else I was thinking, okay, maybe it's GameCube and it's DS. And that's part of the NSO experience over the course of the first 3 years, where they add in GameCube first, then DS goes in the following year, and then they just kind of fill up that library with different games. It's something Nintendo has to keep thinking about because prices do keep going up around them. So naturally, as a business, they're going to be raising the price of their own subscription service. And I kind of feel like $60 or even $70 is the target right now. I like the idea of GameCube. I think there's a lot of value. I think there's a lot of experiences that the newer generation would get a kick out of, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to see people kind of discuss these games all over again, and even seeing the trailers they put together. Can you imagine people right now who think of Star Fox, right, with the on-rails shooter, sure, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's this Star Fox Adventures game? Okay, maybe it's... And then you land on a planet, you're running around as Fox with dinosaurs. Like, what is going on here? Think about how that's such a new experience to people who have never, who weren't around during that generation. And it's like, what am I looking at here? But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Hey, maybe they could even be tricked into thinking their save data has been deleted when they play Eternal Darkness for the first time. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.